My relatives skipped my business launch, hacked my accounts, and demanded 25% profit, so I lawyered up and ended their scheme for good. When I finally decided to launch my own business, it wasn't some sudden gamble. It was years of late nights, saving every extra dollar, and poring over plans while everyone else was watching TV. I wasn't born into money. I didn't have investors lining up. What I had was stubbornness, a couple of loyal friends, and the belief that if I worked harder than anyone else, I could make something real. The funny part? For all the times my relatives dismissed me, I still thought they'd show up. I pictured them sitting in the back row during the launch event, clapping politely, maybe even bragging later that family always supports family. I should have known better. See, growing up, my relatives had a strange way of supporting. They'd mock every idea before it had a chance to breathe. If I mentioned starting a side hustle, I'd get a smirk and a lecture about how I was too ambitious or chasing fantasies. When I bought my first cheap laptop with saved tips, they joked it was just for video games. But deep down, I kept hoping they'd be proud once they saw results. The day of my launch arrived. The rented hall wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. There were banners, a projector showing off my new brand, even a small catering table with cheap sandwiches and soda. I looked around, saw friends, some new clients, even a couple of old coworkers. But the seats I had quietly reserved for family? Empty. Not a single relative walked through those doors. I told myself, fine, they're busy. I'll prove myself without them. And for a while, that lie kept me moving. But then things got weird. A client I had just signed up suddenly messaged me about an uncle who contacted them with inside details of my service. Password reset notifications started hitting my inbox at 3 a.m. Money transfers were being flagged as suspicious activity. And then, like it was some kind of mob shakedown, my cousin slid into my DMs with a simple line. Family deserves their cut. 25%. Non-negotiable. At first, I laughed. It had to be a joke, right? Who demands a profit share from someone else's sweat and tears just because of blood relation? But the more I dug, the more I realized they weren't bluffing. They had access to things they shouldn't. They were moving like people who'd been planning this for months, waiting for the day I finally got something worth taking. I didn't rage. I didn't panic. I just felt this cold shift inside me. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd show them what it felt like to face someone who was finally done playing nice. I had no idea yet just how deep their little scheme went, but I was about to find out. The first time I realized this wasn't just petty jealousy came on a Tuesday morning, about a week after my launch. I was sitting in my tiny office, which, to be honest, was just the spare room in my apartment with a second-hand desk and an old chair that squeaked every time I leaned back. The sun cut across the blinds, making stripes on the floor, and I was sipping cold coffee when I saw the email. It was from my bank. Your password has been changed successfully. My stomach dropped. I hadn't touched my account that morning. Within seconds, another message pinged. If this wasn't you, click here. I scrambled, trying to log in, but the system locked me out. By the time I called the bank, I was already picturing months of savings draining out with every second. The rep on the phone was calm, too calm, as if she'd said this line 1,000 times. Sir, someone tried accessing your account multiple times. We've frozen it for your protection. Relief and anger hit me at once. My money was safe, but someone had been inside my digital house, touching things that weren't theirs. I didn't have to think long about who'd want to sabotage me. Friends? No. Strangers? Too random. Family? They had the motive, the spite, and, worst of all, enough personal information to guess their way into my life. That night, I called my cousin to test the waters. Casual tone, no accusations, just a feeler. Hey, weird thing happened with my bank today. Ever deal with fraud? There was a pause, half a second too long. Then he chuckled, low and mocking. Maybe you should have thought about having better security before trying to act like some big businessman. He said it like a joke, but he wasn't smiling. I could hear it in his voice. Something inside me hardened. I pressed him, still pretending I was clueless. Where'd you say that? Someone's been poking around my accounts. Any idea why anyone would do that? Another pause. Then the line that made my blood go cold. Family takes care of family. Sometimes that means you owe us a piece. 25%. You pay up, or things get complicated. I didn't even respond. I just sat there, phone against my ear, feeling this icy clarity spread through me. He had said it. Out loud. No more guessing. No more excuses about, maybe they don't support me because they're busy. This was real. When I hung up, I stared at my laptop screen, still locked out of half my accounts, and thought about all the years I tried to earn their approval. Every holiday dinner where I bit my tongue. Every sarcastic remark I swallowed. Every hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd clap for me one day. That hope was dead, and something new had taken its place, a kind of calm resolve. Because here's the thing. They thought they were dealing with the same pushover who used to laugh off their insults. But I wasn't that person anymore. I had built something, and I was ready to fight for it. But that was just the beginning. For a couple of days, I tried to convince myself maybe I was overreacting. Maybe my cousin had just been bluffing, trying to spook me into cutting him in. Family drama had always been our background noise, but hacking accounts? Extortion? It sounded too extreme, even for them. Then the messages started rolling in. The first one came from a new client I'd just signed. Hey, is your business still stable? I got a strange call today from someone saying you're not legit. Sounded close to you. He knew details. I froze. My client didn't know the half of it. Only family could drop hints about where I grew up, what school I went to, or even the fact that I once maxed out a credit card when I was 20. Those weren't public details. Those were dinner table stories. The second red flag came through social media. I got a notification that someone tried to reset my Instagram password, the one tied to my business page. Normally I'd shrug it off, but the recovery email listed wasn't mine. It was some burner address with my uncle's birthday in it. Coincidence? No chance. By then, I couldn't ignore it. I started combing through logs, alerts, anything I could pull up. And that's when I noticed the pattern. Most of the login attempts and password resets happen late at night, between 1 and 3 a.m. Guess who works a night shift? My cousin. I remember sitting there at my desk, staring at the timestamps, feeling equal parts sick and furious. I wanted to call him out immediately, just blow it all up. But a part of me, the part that had been dismissed, underestimated, and mocked for years, whispered something colder. Don't scream. Document. So I did. Screenshots. Email trails. Call logs. Every strange notification saved into a folder on a flash drive. I even set up alerts so that every time they tried to break into one of my accounts, it would ping me before the system locked them out. The more I dug, the uglier it got. I found out they hadn't just been trying to snoop. They had already contacted 2 of my suppliers, pretending to be partners in the business. They tried to negotiate their own side deals, offering a discount in exchange for cutting me out. One of the suppliers even forwarded me the email. The sender had used my last name like a shield, assuming the family connection would give them credibility. That was the moment the denial finally broke. This wasn't petty. This wasn't random. This was coordinated. I sat back in my squeaky chair, the room dead quiet except for the hum of my old desktop fan. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. It was adrenaline. I realized I was in a fight, not a fist fight, not some screaming match across a dinner table. A real fight. One where my livelihood was on the line. And here's the strange thing. Instead of panic, I felt clarity. My relatives had been circling me like vultures for years, waiting for the chance to feast. Well, now I finally had proof. But I wasn't ready for what I was about to discover next. 3 nights later, at 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed with the alert I'd set up. Another login attempt, same IP address range I'd been tracking for days. Only this time the ping wasn't from some random account. It was from my business bank portal, the one that held the launch funds and client deposits. I slid out of bed and went straight to my desk. My laptop screen glowed in the dark, casting blue light across the room. I pulled up the tracker I'd installed. The little dots on the map lined up like a trail of breadcrumbs. City, district, street, and then the address. My uncle's house. I sat back, heart pounding, staring at the screen. No more maybe. No more plausible deniability. I had the source, the timestamps, even the device fingerprint from the attempt. And it wasn't just him. Another address popped up in the logs. My cousin's workplace, exactly during his night shift break. They were tag-teaming me. I opened my email. There, sitting unread, was a message from one of my oldest clients. Look, I don't know what's going on with your family, but someone claiming to be your partner called me tonight. They knew our contract terms, even the discount code we used last month. They said you agreed to give them 25% of my payment and to reroute invoices to a new account. I hung up, but you should know. My stomach turned. That code was stored only in my private CRM. They weren't just guessing, they were inside my systems. I clicked over to my bank's security dashboard and downloaded the logs. Multiple failed logins. One success, for 3 minutes before I'd reset the password last week. A transfer attempt blocked only because of a mismatched security token. The account they'd tried to send the money to? Registered under a Shell LLC using my uncle's wife's maiden name. I felt sick. My hands shook so badly, I had to put the mug of coffee down before it spilled. It wasn't fear anymore. It was a mix of rage and betrayal pressing up against my ribs. All those family dinners where they'd laughed at my little projects. All those times I'd been the quiet one, the dreamer. And now, when I'd finally built something real, they swooped in like predators, assuming I'd fold. They hadn't just crossed a line, they'd blown it to pieces. I opened my notes app and started typing a timeline. Every alert, every email, every phone call, screenshots attached, client statements copied and pasted, supplier messages forwarded. I built the case piece by piece, like stacking ammunition. When the folder hit 250 megabytes, I zipped it, gave it a cold name, insurance.zip, and backed it up to 3 different drives. One stayed on my desk. One went into my safe deposit box. One I emailed to a friend out of state with a single line, "Hold this." No questions. By the time dawn broke, I was sitting there in the half-light, exhausted but calm. I had enough to take to the police, a lawyer, even a judge if it came to that. This wasn't family drama anymore. This was cybercrime, fraud, attempted theft, felonies. And yet, under the exhaustion, a strange satisfaction spread through me. For the first time in my life with them, I wasn't guessing. I wasn't reacting. I was in control. I remember standing up, stretching my stiff back, and walking to the window. The street outside was empty, the sky just starting to lighten. My reflection in the glass didn't look like someone who'd been victimized. It looked like someone who'd already decided what comes next. I whispered it out loud, just to feel the words. They picked the wrong person. I knew then the plan had shifted. It wasn't about if I'd fight back. It was about how and when. And thanks to the proof I'd gathered, I had options. I wasn't ready for what I was about to uncover next, but one thing was clear. This would end on my terms, not theirs. I thought the worst was behind me once I had the proof. But the deeper I looked, the clearer it became. What I'd uncovered was just the surface. It started with a supplier call. I'd been waiting on a shipment of promotional materials, flyers, banners, branded packaging. Nothing fancy, but essential for a new business. When I called to check the delay, the rep hesitated. "Sir, I'm confused. Your brother-in-law already called last week. He said you were restructuring and gave us new instructions. He even forwarded a different payment account." My pulse spiked. I didn't have a brother-in-law. They'd used the word deliberately to sound legitimate. I asked her to forward me the email. When it hit my inbox, I sat frozen in my chair. The sender's address wasn't some random burner. It was a custom domain, 1 letter off from my company's official one. A near-perfect clone. That's when I realized this wasn't just a hack. They were running a full-scale impersonation. I called another supplier, this time pretending I already knew. "Hey, just confirming the changes my relative mentioned." The silence on the other end lasted a beat too long. Then the rep admitted, "Yeah, we thought it was strange. He said he was co-owner and that you were stepping back. He even sent a copy of an operating agreement." Operating agreement. My chest tightened. I asked for a copy. When I opened the PDF, my jaw locked so hard it hurt. It was a forged document with my name on it. According to their fake paperwork, I had supposedly signed over a quarter of my profits in exchange for family capital support. The signature was clumsy, scanned, obviously fake if you looked close, but to an outsider, at a glance, it looked real. I stared at that page for minutes, the weight of it pressing down. They hadn't just tried to steal passwords. They were preparing to rewrite my entire business identity. If they'd gotten one supplier or client to believe the papers, it could have snowballed fast. For the first time, I felt a flash of something close to fear. Not because I doubted myself. I had the evidence. I knew what was real. But because I finally understood the scope of their ambition. They weren't just after a quick payday. They wanted to hijack everything I'd built and install themselves like parasites, forever draining the work I'd bled for. I took a deep breath, forced my hands steady, and added the forged contract to my insurance folder. Another nail in their coffin. That night, lying awake in bed, I replayed every interaction with them from the past few months. The sudden questions about which bank I used. The jokes about making me their golden goose. The way they'd mock me for renting a small hall instead of a fancy venue. It all clicked into place. They hadn't just skipped my launch because they didn't care. They skipped it because they were already busy dismantling me behind the scenes. And here's the part that made my blood turn cold. I realized they weren't done. If they had already forged documents and cloned accounts, what was next? Clients dragged into lawsuits? Taxes filed in my name? Debt taken out with my business as collateral? I wasn't just up against petty family sabotage. I was up against a scheme designed to erase me. This went so much deeper than I thought. I sat at my desk long after midnight, the forged contract still open on my screen. For years, whenever family drama hit, I'd waste energy arguing, trying to convince them, trying to salvage peace. But not this time. Something inside me had gone ice cold. I wasn't asking myself if I'd fight back. The only question was how hard to hit. Option 1, confrontation. Call them out directly, slam the evidence in their faces, and watch them scramble. The problem? That would give them time to adjust, destroy files, deny everything. Too risky. Option 2, silence. Keep collecting, building the case, then drop it like a bomb in one move. Cleaner, smarter. But it required patience, and patience wasn't exactly my family's strong suit. They'd push harder, maybe even get reckless. Option 3, go nuclear. Bring in a lawyer immediately, hand over the files, and let the law shred them to pieces. Tempting, very tempting. But a part of me wanted to see their faces when they realized I wasn't the pawn they thought. I leaned back in my squeaky chair, fingers steepled, running through every resource I had. My lawyer friend from college who owed me a favor. The client willing to testify about the fake phone call. The email logs, the IP addresses, the forged document. I had more than enough ammunition. For the first time, I felt something that surprised me. Calm satisfaction. They'd set this whole thing up thinking I was weak, easy prey. But they'd made a mistake. They'd left fingerprints everywhere. They weren't half as clever as they thought. I looked at the folder labeled insurance.zip on my desktop, then at the business logo taped above my desk, the one I'd sketched on napkins years ago. My work, my sweat, my life. And I whispered to myself, almost smiling. I didn't hesitate anymore. It wasn't about if. It was only about how. And I already had the answer. I didn't waste time. By morning, I had my plan lined up like a checklist. Lock down my systems. Line up legal support. Control the narrative before they could. The first call I made was to an old college friend who had become a lawyer. He was sharp, direct, and not the type to sugarcoat. I gave him the short version. Login attempts traced to my uncle's house, forged contracts sent to suppliers, client impersonation calls, and an attempted bank transfer. There was a pause on the line, then his voice hardened. Send me everything. All of it. We're filing for both criminal charges and a civil injunction. I'll get subpoenas for the bank and the email providers. And whatever you do, don't tip them off. The less they know, the better. By the time we hung up, I felt something shift inside me. For once, I wasn't the one scrambling to defend myself. I was setting the pace. Next, I started tightening the walls. Every account got new, randomized passwords. Two-factor authentication was activated across the board. I called my bank, flagged the attempted transfer as fraud, and set up alerts that would notify me in real time if anyone even breathed near my account. Then I reached out to my key clients directly. No excuses, no long stories, just the facts. Someone's trying to interfere with my business. If anyone contacts you claiming to represent me, call me directly on this number. Most of them responded with brief but supportive messages. One client even said, I recorded the call I got. If you need it for court, it's yours. That single sentence felt like a shield locking into place. I wasn't working alone anymore. After that, I duplicated my insurance.zip folder and sent it to 2 trusted allies, an old IT buddy and a certified accountant. The IT friend confirmed the logs were airtight. IP addresses match my uncle's house and my cousin's workplace. The accountant reviewed the forged contract and pointed out several obvious inconsistencies that a judge would spot instantly. Both agreed to back me up with statements if needed. Piece by piece, the noose was tightening. Finally, I thought about reputation. My family's favorite weapon had always been gossip, twisting stories until everyone believed I was the screw-up. I wasn't going to give them the chance this time. I drafted a short message for social media. Exciting updates coming soon. Thank you to my amazing clients and supporters for your patience while we strengthen security and expand our services. More news to follow. No drama. No hints of the war brewing behind the scenes. Just calm control. By the end of the day, I leaned back in my chair, exhausted but steady. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just reacting. I was moving first. Every step I took tightened the trap. I thought maybe this would be enough, that once the lawyer letters landed, they'd back off, realize the game was over. For a brief moment, I even let myself feel relief. But I couldn't have been more wrong. For a week, everything went quiet. The late-night login attempts stopped. No more strange emails. No more client complaints. No new forged documents landing in my inbox. My lawyer sent me updates. Subpoenas were in motion. Evidence was stacking neatly into a case file. He sounded confident. "It's not a matter of if we win," he said. "It's a matter of how fast." I let myself breathe. I actually slept through the night without checking my phone every hour. My mornings felt normal again. Coffee that didn't taste like adrenaline, quiet walks to clear my head. For the first time since the launch, I felt like maybe the worst had passed. Even my friends noticed. One of them joked, "See? Sometimes problems solve themselves if you just hang tight." I didn't correct him. Part of me wanted to believe that. Then, one evening, I logged into my business dashboard and saw the numbers. Steady growth, a few new clients, nothing unusual. I smiled to myself. Maybe, finally, I had turned the page. Maybe they realized I wasn't going to cave and decided to crawl back into the shadows. But looking back, I should have known better. The silence wasn't peace, it was strategy. And when the storm came back, it hit harder than ever. The calm didn't last long. It was a Friday afternoon when the calm shattered. My lawyer called, his tone clipped. "Check your email." Now, I opened my inbox and froze. Sitting there was a cease and desist letter addressed to me. According to the letter, I was being accused of misrepresentation, breach of contract, and financial fraud. The sender? A law firm my uncle could never have afforded on his own. Attached was their so-called evidence, the forged contract, the fake emails, screenshots of accounts they had tampered with. They had flipped the script, using their own crimes as ammunition against me. My lawyer's voice cut through my shock. "Don't panic. This is a classic offensive move. They're trying to get ahead of us, make you look like the aggressor." But it didn't stop there. Within hours, my phone lit up with texts from friends and distant relatives. "Hey, what's going on? I saw something about you online." I jumped onto Facebook and felt my chest tighten. There it was, a public post from my cousin, dripping with self-righteous indignation. It's sad when family tries to cut you out after you supported them. We invested time and resources in this business, only for him to backstab us. All we ever asked for was our fair 25%. Instead, he's trying to erase us. We'll let the courts decide. Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments. People who didn't know the truth already taking sides. And every hour, the post spread further. I scrolled through the comments, my jaw locked. Words like selfish, greedy, and betrayal jumped off the screen. People I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly experts on my character. That night, one of my clients called, hesitant. "Look, I don't know what's true or not, but if this is turning into a lawsuit, I can't risk being caught in the middle. I might need to pause our contract." The anger that hit me wasn't hot. It was cold, steady, almost surgical. My relatives thought they could hack accounts, forge documents, and now drag my name through the mud. And I'd just fold? They'd underestimated me yet again. I started cataloging the new mess. Screenshots of the Facebook post. Copies of the cease and desist letter. Client messages expressing doubt. Everything went into the same folder, layered onto the mountain of evidence I'd already collected. My lawyer was livid. They've overplayed their hand. If they think throwing mud first will save them, they're wrong. But you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get uglier before it gets better. They want to fight in public. And ugly it got. Within days, they escalated further. They filed a bogus report with the Better Business Bureau. They even tried to contact my landlord, claiming I was running an illegal operation out of my apartment. Each move was more desperate than the last, but it was working. My reputation was taking hits, and I could feel the weight pressing on my shoulders. Still, I didn't break. I didn't even flinch. Because unlike them, I knew the truth was on my side. And I had a trump card they didn't know about. The forensic IT report my friend had finished, which tied every single login attempt to their devices. I looked at the pile of evidence, then at the Facebook post still making the rounds. My relatives thought they were drowning me. What they didn't realize was that every lie, every forged document, every smear campaign was just tightening the rope around their own necks. I leaned back in my chair, strangely calm in the chaos. The louder they screamed, the clearer their panic became. What happened next made me question everything I thought I knew about how far family could go. The breaking point came on a Sunday morning. I was still half asleep when my phone exploded with notifications, texts, missed calls, tags. My business page had been flooded overnight. Dozens of one-star reviews, each one written like a copy-paste attack. He's a scammer. He steals from family. Don't trust this fraud. Within an hour, my rating tanked from 5 stars to barely 2. My email inbox was stuffed with refund requests from people I hadn't even worked with. It was a coordinated smear campaign, and it worked like a hammer. The final gut punch came when my landlord called. "Look, I don't want trouble in my building. Someone sent me a packet, claims you're running shady operations. If this is true, I'll have to reconsider your lease." I could hear the unease in his voice. They'd taken it that far. My own home, my place of work, suddenly felt like it was under siege. For a few minutes, I just sat there, staring at the wall, letting the weight of it press down. My reputation online? In flames. My clients? On edge. Even my living situation? Threatened. It was the perfect storm, and anyone else might have cracked under it. But here's the thing. I wasn't anyone else. Because while they thought they were burying me, I had been digging in silence. Every fake review traced back to accounts tied to the same IP. Every forged document was preserved with metadata intact. And the IT report? It was airtight, timestamps, locations, device fingerprints. Enough to put their whole scheme under a legal microscope. So I didn't panic. I didn't argue with the reviews or beg my landlord for patience. I let the chaos burn around me, and I sat with an almost unnerving calm. Because I knew something my relatives didn't. The hammer they dropped wasn't mine to carry. It was theirs. They thought I was finished. They thought they'd won. But they never realized I had been saving the real ending for them. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Beige walls, flickering fluorescent lights, and that dull, dusty smell of old furniture and quiet wars. My cousin sat at the plaintiff's table with his smug little lawyer, while my uncle sat 2 seats down, arms folded like he was waiting for a parking ticket to disappear. I didn't say a word. I didn't look at them. I just slid the USB drive across the table to my attorney and watched him nod like a man with a loaded deck. They had sued me. On paper, it looked serious. Breach of verbal contract, misrepresentation, and denial of agreed profit sharing. They were trying to force the court to grant them a percentage of my company, based on forged documents and a house of lies. But they didn't know what was about to hit them. My attorney stood up calmly, handed a printed packet to the judge, and said the words I'd been waiting weeks to hear. "Your Honor, defense will demonstrate that this entire claim is not only baseless, but built on orchestrated fraud, identity manipulation, digital forgery, and targeted online harassment, all of which have been documented and timestamped across multiple platforms and devices." The judge's eyebrows lifted slightly. He motioned for him to proceed. It took 20 minutes to walk through the forensic IT report. IP logs tracing login attempts to my uncle's address. Metadata showing forged contracts were edited on my cousin's laptop. Messages from clients who'd received fake calls and emails. Evidence of their burner accounts posting slander and filing false business reports. But the moment that shattered them was the recording. One of my clients had recorded the phone call where my cousin impersonated me, in full detail. Voice, phrases, even specific financial terms only I used. When the judge heard it, he glanced sharply toward their table. Their lawyer tried to object, stammering something about miscommunication and family tensions, but the tone in the room had shifted. The judge didn't just see through it. He felt the setup. Then came my turn to speak. I stood up, slow and steady, and faced the bench. All I ever wanted was to build something for myself, honestly. I invited my family to be part of it. Not for profit, but to be proud. They skipped my launch, hacked my accounts, impersonated me, and tried to destroy everything I built just to claim a piece of something they never lifted a finger to help create. Silence. The kind that wraps around your throat. The judge spoke slowly. This case isn't just dismissed. I'm forwarding everything in this folder to the district attorney for review under criminal investigation. That was it. Done. Game over. As I walked out of the courtroom, My cousin was still trying to whisper something to the lawyer, but his face had drained of all color. My uncle looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. Outside, my lawyer clapped me on the back. You buried them without raising your voice. That's how it's done. But I wasn't smiling. I wasn't celebrating. I was just done. Done trying to be liked. Done begging to be taken seriously. Done pretending blood meant loyalty. They had tried to steal my business. What they lost was something even bigger, their ability to ever touch my life again.